silk bows, floral maxi dresses, baby pink. These are some of the massive trends from 2024 into 2025, but does anyone know where they came from? Feels like all of a sudden things just start trending on TikTok and Instagram with no real source of popularity. Everywhere you turn, people are following these trends, but if you ask them, they have no idea where they came from either. So where the hell are these trends coming from? I came across this idea when I was shopping at Target and noticed the sheer amount of dresses and floral patterned things. When I thought about it further, I realized that there were lots of trends around me. I realized that Target was no longer a store I could see myself shopping at. Back in the early 2020s, Target was filled with tees and chains and dark drip jeans, things that really fit me. But now that I found my style and don't just follow trends, Target is no longer a store I see myself shopping at. Obviously, it makes sense that trends move and change, and that my style was active a few years ago, and it isn't anymore. But I'm still curious as to where each trend comes from, so for this video, in the sake of my own interest, I looked back to try to find where exactly these trends are coming from. Back in 2020, during the height of lockdown, teenagers all over the world flooded to TikTok for a sense of community. On alt TikTok, given its name for both its alternative style and the fact that it requires users to take an alternative route through the algorithm to reach it, various subcultures began popping up. The well-known ones, like emo, punk, grunge, and goth, were popular, but what was even more so was the brand new subcultures that came straight from social media. One of the most popular subcultures was Cottagecore. Cottagecore was found to be initially created on Tumblr in 2018, a popular blog site for alternative queer people in the 2010s. The post was a mood board, a popular medium for aesthetics then and now, titled Cottagecore MLM, MLM standing for Men Loving Men, another way to describe the gay community.
I'll now read the traditional opening message by Society member Henry David Thoreau. I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. Put to rout all that was not life, and not when I had come to die, discover that I had not lived. And Kitty's mark.
Soon enough, after being posted to TikTok, Cottagecore blew up, becoming one of the staples of 2020 TikTok. Defined by its values, Cottagecore was majorly popular due to its focus on escapism from modern society and return to nature. During lockdown, people were forced to stay home, and many found entertainment in the outside and exploring the nature around them. They reevaluated the weight of modern values like hustle and always-on culture, along with the omnipresence of technology. Cottagecore was an outlet for people to romanticize self-sustainability and separate themselves from the ugliness of modern society to hide away in nature's feminine beauty. In 2021, the style of clothing was everywhere, from Target to Walmart to department stores to malls. The style drew from various places, ranging from English countryside living to movements of the 60s and 70s. In particular, the Back to the Land movement of the 60s, where socialist-leaning Americans, in particular hippies, began to move in waves to rural areas. The purpose was to reconnect with nature and find, as author Jean Logsdon puts it, the kind of independence that defines success in terms of how much food, clothing, shelter, and contentment I could produce for myself, rather than how much I could buy. Cottagecore was an exemplary movement that brought people in from all different backgrounds and united them under a common, kind set of beliefs. It was created by queer people and popularized for and by people of all colors. Cottagecore is a trend for everyone to enjoy and see themselves in. A similar movement that grew in popularity around this time, far more nefarious than the whimsy of Cottagecore, was Tradwives. Hannah Nealman was born 8th of 9 children in a Mormon family in Utah. She participated in scholarship pageants and was a big-time ballerina when she met her future husband. When he was 23 and she was 21, they met through mutual friends, though Hannah denied going out with him multiple times. From his father's connection, being the founder of multiple airlines, he got the seat next to Hannah, on a 5-hour flight back to Juilliard after she visited home, something that she had just mentioned to him. Hannah said that she wanted to date for at least a year before marriage, so she could get her life under wraps and finish college, but Daniel didn't want to. After a month of dating, they were engaged. 2 months after, they were married, moving in together, and 3 after that, she was pregnant. So, let's take a step back. Hannah gave up on her ambitions as one of, if not the greatest dancers of her time, for a far too quick, seemingly forceful marriage. Within the following years, they had 3 kids while she was still dancing professionally, and after some moving around, they settled back in Utah. Hannah and her family are the people behind Ballerina Farm, a traditional family aesthetic account. The videos are made to look as pleasing as possible. They have 10 million followers on TikTok and are active on multiple platforms. They also have a business selling meat from their farm as well as household items. Now, Hannah does most of the childcare. They have a cleaner, but Hannah does the shopping with the children and the cooking. She also homeschools them. Daniel does the farm work and all the laundry, but still, he says, that she gets so ill from exhaustion that she can't get out of bed for a week sometimes. And all throughout interviews, Daniel is noted for interrupting. When asked about the timing of her pregnancies, Hannah says, "It's very much a matter of prayer to me. I'm like, God, is it time to bring another one to the earth? And I've never been told no." Daniel's addition. But for whatever reason, it's exactly 9 months that she's ready for the next one. When Hannah tries to repeat her point, saying it's definitely a matter of prayer, Daniel just continues hammering in his point with, it's a matter of prayer, but somehow it's exactly 9 months. What? Reading this part shocked me. Is he bragging that he's got game with his wife? Is he shaming her for getting pregnant so easily? Is this his poor attempt at a joke? No matter what, it's a terrible way of taking all the focus off of her and onto him, which is insane, given that they're talking about pregnancy. Some other details about their home life. The children usually play schoolhouse games to fill the time when they're not being homeschooled. Hannah had 6 out of 8 of her children at home, the other 2 being because of birth complications. Though she says she loves giving birth at home with no medication, she also says that getting an epidural one time was an amazing experience. She did it because Daniel wasn't around. Even if this is all her decisions and is what makes her happy, it's of no shame to her. Daniel has so much of Daddy's money, yet he wants to live out his Utah Mormon fantasy. How does she feel about that? Was this something she even wanted to do? Hannah left Utah to go to New York City for dance, just to return to Utah to live a life parallel to the matriarchs of her own family with no dancing career. Hannah requested to renovate a barn into a dance studio, but it was eventually made into a schoolhouse by Daniel's choice. This entire story just breaks my heart. Though Hannah says she's happy and it's all her decisions, how reliable is that? It could very well be true, but it also could be something she's forced to do and say. Often, these traditional lifestyles are a breeding ground for abuse. When one partner is financially reliant on the other, it's exceedingly easy for the working partner to grow resentment towards the stay-at-home one, as the homemaking is downplayed. On the other hand, the partner making the home might feel guilty or even trapped given the financial reliance. This is only heightened by the values that most traditional households have, such as the requirement of women to be fully submissive to her husband, as her sole purpose is to please her husband and mother his children. Getting back on topic though, the trend of Tradwives is a bad omen. Suddenly, women are romanticizing this life as an alternative to all the hustle and bustle of modern life. When women, regardless, do the majority of unpaid domestic work, make around 87 cents to every dollar paid by men, and have to deal with a caregiving crisis, all at the same time. It might seem smarter and even more enjoyable to stay home given circumstances allowing it, but most circumstances don't. Housewives in the 1950s were almost entirely white. Black women were made to work due to low wages and high costs of living. Even with children at home, both parents were often working long hours. On the other hand, suburban white families were blessed with generational wealth. Lots of Tradwife content creators make it abundantly clear that what they do is their own choice and doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right one, just their preferred one. But is that what everyone thinks? Recently, in politics, most of the far-right politicians force Christian fundamentalism onto government policies. The overturning of Roe v. Wade, stripping women of their autonomy to the growing restrictions of contraceptives, and the call to return to the Christian definition of marriage, all of these subjugate women and have very little effect on cis-hetero men, besides prioritizing them and their beliefs, instead of things like actual medical facts. Why are women encouraging this? Why are we following along with what men like Mike Johnson say and returning to 18th century value when the government is trying to get women to have more children with bogus incentives? We have to question these motives. Just by looking at Elon and his 14 children with 4 different women, with more likely unconfirmed, we can see the extent to which far-right Americans grossly obsess over repopulating the country with kids they can teach their rhetoric. Propaganda is defined on Google as information, especially of a bias or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. And how is that any different than how Tradwife content is used and often created for? These videos show women a lifestyle by giving them a misleading peek into what it's like in order to trap them in a submissive position. Now, let's go back to Cottagecore. Cottagecore majorly drew inspiration from the hippie era with return to nature values and aesthetics. Yet, traditional wives are from the 50s, a time following World War II when women were back in the house after their husbands returned home from war. Cottagecore vehemently disgraces war and is a counter-movement to growing prioritization of social constructs and globalization, while Tradwives are quite obviously founded in it. If we did want to return to 18th century values, as Mike Johnson says, we would be returning to the period of Enlightenment, the period of brilliant thinkers like Thoreau and Emerson, who followed Christianity to support their belief in the natural goodness of humanity and the importance of experience over societal norms. Rather than follow what others say, they believe it is better to experience lifestyles yourself and decide what is best for you that way. And in some ways, Tradwives do follow this principle. Some of them decided to be a stay-at-home mom because it was more enjoyable than their previous experiences. And all the power to them. But that does not mean the same for everyone who sees this content. Fashion and social trends have always directly reflected politics at the given time, and this shift is a prime example of it. The early 2020s were a time of self-exploration and realization that everything doesn't have to be this way. We can survive working from home and actually having time to ourselves, free from worries of judgment and social restraints. But as soon as this period was over, the higher powers in society took this away, putting us back in our assigned boxes, perhaps causing women to think that being a stay-at-home mother is the only option. Anything else doesn't pay as well, and it's healthier to shoulder motherhood instead of both motherhood and job. This is where I have found these trends to come from. Now, lots of, if not most of the popular styles still have to do with cottagecore. Going onto Target and looking at some of the dresses, we can see influences of hippie styles in the English countryside. But we can also see the romanticization of the 1950s. Regardless of the trend, I think it's important to know implications things might have and what similarities it shares with other styles of the past. You should always be in the know as to where these things you are advertising came from. Miranda Priestley said it best.
Something funny? No, nothing's, it's just both those belts look exactly the same to me, still. learning about this stuff and,
This stuff? Oh, okay. I see. You think this has nothing to do with you. You go to your closet and you select, I don't know, that lumpy blue sweater, for instance, because you're trying to tell the world that you take yourself too seriously to care about what you put on your back. But what you don't know is that that sweater is not just blue. It's not turquoise. It's not lapis. It's actually cerulean. And you're also blithely unaware of the fact that in 2002, Oscar de la Renta did a collection of cerulean gowns. And then I think it was Yves Saint Laurent, wasn't it, who showed cerulean military jackets? I think we need a jacket here. And then cerulean quickly showed up in the collections of 8 different designers. And then it filtered down through the department stores and then trickled on down into some tragic casual corner where you no doubt fished it out of some clearance bin. However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs. And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room.
Thank you for watching. This video was originally going to be 2, if not 3 times this length, but I figured out halfway through that the script wasn't very mindful of the deadline. So instead I make my point far more concise on one topic instead of multiple. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you enjoyed, even just a little.